It's great having you with me today. For all of you who really don't know it, because maybe you're watching it off schedule, today is the 4th of July. Yay! Hooray for the red, white, and blue. Anyway, yeah, I'm glad to be an American. I have certainly been in a lot of countries in the world, and I can tell you, I have a lot to be thankful for being an American. Today we're going to talk about true liberty. I think this is a very important conversation, one that is very near and dear to my life, and a principle of life that counts a lot in so many ways. Talk to people and they'll go, I'm not a slave. I ain't nobody's, I don't use that word, so I'm not. Lots of things people will say to insinuate they're not a slave in any way to anybody or anything. Oh, I beg to differ. In counseling, it definitely comes up a lot. And actually, we're a lot more enslaved than we might imagine. If you don't believe me, answer these questions. These are not challenge questions, these are just questions I'm going to ask you. Answer these questions. Whenever you have a day off, do you spend the whole thing in your pajamas in front of the television set, in front of your tablet, with your phone in your hand? And the day goes by and you don't accomplish one single thing that you meant to do? You might be enslaved to electronics. When you go out and you say, I'm just going to have a drink or two, and 4 or 5 hours go by and you lost track of how many beers you've had or how much you've had to drink, and you are far more messed up than you thought, and you have no business getting into a car, but you get in your car and you drove home and you can't even remember the drive. You might be more enslaved to substances than you thought. When you get ready to make a major decision, do you make that decision yourself, thoughtfully and prayerfully, and then with a real strong sense of security in the decision that you made, go ahead? Or do you ask your mom, your dad, your best friends, all your buds, some of your coworkers? Everybody in the world gives you input. Most of them give you input differently than maybe the way your instincts are leaning. And you go ahead and do what they said, because if you don't, they're going to criticize you and they're never going to let you live it down if it goes differently. Are you a slave to public opinion? Are you a slave to people pleasing? Those are only a few things. I could give you a whole lot more. I just want you to know that sometimes we're a little more enslaved than we think. Sometimes we're enslaved to public opinion, truthfully. We don't want to have a brand new car all the time. We don't care about how we dress or how we look, but everyone cares a great deal. At our work, people really put the pressure on us, and so we have the I've got to keep up with the Joneses mentality. Are you a slave to public opinion? There are a lot of things to which we can be a slave, and then I'm going to talk about a couple of the more difficult ones. Did something really awful happen to you as a kid or as a teenager? Did someone sexually molest or sexually abuse you? Were you a victim of date rape? Did someone do things to you no one ever should do to anybody at all? I won't go into great detail because I imagine maybe some kids are around. Uh, and are you still bitter about that? Are you still scared of being appropriately affectionate with your family members, with your mate, even with your own child? You might be a whole lot more of a slave than you imagined. And are you bitter about things that happened when you were a kid? Are you still angry about things that happened to you, things people said, incidents, events, or heaven forbid, long-standing issues? Are you still so bitter? I just hate that person's guts. I can't even hardly stand to go to Christmas because they're going to be there. I don't have to talk to them. Are you a slave to your own emotional bitterness or anger, frustration, and hurt, things you've never gotten past or gotten through? You would be absolutely shocked how many people are slaves. And the opposite of being enslaved to something is true liberty. Liberty, as we know, is a synonym for freedom. The freedom to live, the freedom to really enjoy life, the freedom to laugh, the freedom to have healthy relationships, the freedom of personal peace of mind, the freedom of forgiveness, the freedom of joy, the freedom to live life unencumbered by public opinion or the need to make somebody or everybody try to be happy with my decisions and my choices. Oh my gracious, there is a lot of freedom available to us that we don't always live out. And I would like to talk to you just for a few minutes about some of that today. There's no question we live in a big world with a lot of people. There are times we actually have to care at some element or some level about what people think. But what kind of car I drive, honey, a long time ago I decided you can get way over that because this is my behind. If my car goes from point A to point B safely with decent gas mileage, what my car looks like, how old it is, how ugly it is, how badly it needs a paint job, that ain't none of your business. Not unless you want to pay my car payments, my car insurance, and put gas in it, then I guess we can talk. But in the meantime, it is really not your business anything about my car. Oh, and my clothes? Yeah. I actually used to go to a place, it was a church, I confess, where they told you everything about what you had to wear. Do you know what? I live in jeans today. I didn't ever wear jeans. In fact, I didn't ever wear pants until I was well into my late 20s. But once I started wearing jeans, now it's pretty much hard to get me out of them. I don't wear basically anything most of the time. I would say probably 28 days a month for real, besides jeans. You know what? If I have to go somewhere and other people are offended because I have jeans on with a nice enough top, that's totally not my problem. If it is not completely inappropriate, I admit I don't wear jeans to a funeral. Otherwise, I'm going to wear jeans and you can deal. This is not my problem. I have complete liberty to dress in the way I would like to. I'm clean. I don't smell bad. I look reasonably nice. I don't look like a tramp. I'm not wearing a paper bag. Yeah, so I'm wearing blue jeans. You'll be fine. And me too. I want to be comfortable. That's real liberty. Not enslaved to public opinion or, frankly, anyone else's opinion except my own. If I'm clean and comfortable, then I'm adequately dressed. Peace of mind. Oh my gracious, we just talked about this recently. Nurturing peace in your home. You're in charge of that, you know. If you torment yourself over and over with what that person said and how that person acted and that argument that you had, that disagreement that you had, that situation that's going on, that's you. You are tormenting yourself. You are keeping yourself from having the freedom of peace of mind. I didn't say this was easy. I was a relentless worrier when I was young. That's why I know this. It is certainly within the realm of possibility to learn to let it go. Especially if you're a Christian, you don't have any excuses. You need to learn how to get in front of God and tell Him the truth about all of it, lay it all down for Him, and walk away and let Him have it and let Him handle it. You just get out of the way and live your life. It's an amazing level of freedom. The last thing I'm going to talk to you about is a big one, and that is guilt and shame. They can be related to something that was done to you or something that you did yourself. Either way, guilt and shame are really tough, and you have no freedom, no liberty when you live under an umbrella of guilt and shame. If someone did it to you, sometimes that's even harder because, especially if you've got to see this person at times or interact with them, you really have to find true forgiveness in your heart for that person. That's not letting them off the hook or saying what they did was perfectly okay. It's letting your own self off the hook emotionally so that you can have the freedom of walking in forgiveness. I've done a couple of really great episodes on forgiveness. I'm not going to go in depth today, but I want you to know that forgiveness is possible, and for you to live in a place of forgiveness, forgiving someone else for what they have done that wronged you, is an awesome place of liberty to live. And even being able to forgive yourself, dealing with your own guilt and shame about things you should not have done or things that you should have done but you left undone. You need to be able to look in a mirror and say, I forgive you, to your very own self. And when you forgive yourself for being human, for making mistakes, even huge, gigantic, horrific mistakes, then you can actually walk in a place of real liberty, of true freedom, and peace of mind, which is a really great place to live. Some things are a lot harder to forgive than others. I had a cousin that had 4 sons, and next door was a beautiful, blonde headed, blue eyed, adorable, I mean, beautiful little girl named Amber. And she was out in the yard playing, and they were getting ready to go somewhere. And she said to the boys, Can you see Amber? And her one said, Yeah, she's over there, Mom. She's over there. And she started back up. And she heard the ka-thunk. And she killed Amber that day. Who could have ever guessed such a thing would happen? And she never drove a car again. Another friend of mine had a neighbor with a beautiful swimming pool, and their children were allowed to play there. And so one day, their 4-year-old, who had been there many, many times, went over, and somehow somebody had left the gate unlocked. And their child got into that pool, and their child died that day. These were some of their best friends in the world. They lived right next door. Both of these people had similarly horribly traumatic things happen, although one of them did it themselves, quote unquote, and one of them, because of someone's carelessness, it was done to them. Probably one of the most traumatic things that can ever happen on the face of this good earth is for a child to die, especially when we perceive that they died needlessly. I'm going to tell you the difference in these two stories. My cousin never forgave herself. I kid you not. She started drinking. It horribly compromised her ability to be a good parent to her own sons. And these were young boys. Like her oldest was about 10 or 11. This was a good bit of her kids' lives, and it really compromised her ability even to be a parent. Not just because she wouldn't drive them to soccer practice or take them to doctor's appointments, but because of how severely it affected her, and she never did really deal with it or come to any kind of resolution with it. It basically wrecked her life. The other person learned forgiveness, and they really truly did. They forgave their neighbors. They recognized that horrible things happen sometimes, and especially the guy, his name was Ken. Ken said, There isn't any reason something horrible should happen to everybody else on the earth, and nothing would ever happen to me. So the fact that a really, truly horrible, awful, terrible, bad thing happened to me, it's just like anyone else. It's part of what goes on in life. But my friends never meant for something awful to happen to my child. There was no maliciousness involved. It was purely an accident. Who knows how it happened? And it happened. And I forgave them. They're my good friends even yet. I wasn't going to let something as horrific and difficult as that was destroy my life or destroy my friendships. Wow. I want you to know this is within your power of decision. You may live as a slave to a tragedy the rest of your life. That's up to you. You may find true liberty in forgiveness, in healing, in processing what happened, in acceptance of some really bad things, but knowing it's part of your life story and you're going to get through it. True liberty, that's really and truly your decision. Let me say to you, my dad, my uncle, my brother, many, many, many of my cousins, they fought for freedom in the United States of America in various places and times, in World War II, Korea, Vietnam, frankly, even in the desert in Iraq. Do you know what? I appreciate the freedom that I have, and I understand what it means, having lived in countries without great freedom. I'm thankful every single day for the freedom that is mine and the price that was paid to have it. I understand for you to have freedom in your mind, in your heart, in your spirit, there is a cost involved. And sometimes it might be a reasonably high cost, but it is worth paying it that you might have true liberty. Finally, I would like to say to you, in spiritual liberty, knowing that you are free from condemnation before God, free to have a loving, beautiful relationship with Him, He willingly paid the cost for you when Jesus died on the cross and paid the penalty for your sin and mine. If you would like to know more about that, I would really appreciate it if you would send me a note, an email, a question, a comment. And there are episodes to which you may refer to learn more about that. But just know that true liberty in the spiritual realm, the cost has already been paid, and the decision is up to you. My challenge question for you today is, how free am I? Maybe you're completely free. I hope that you are free from guilt, free from shame, free from blame, truly free in your heart. And if you are not, I really hope that you will begin on the path of freedom today to have a life of true liberty. Thank you so much for joining me today on Paint a Beautiful Picture. You may find additional information on our paintabeautifulpicture.com website. Additionally, you may watch me on Rumble, and you may also listen to a podcast on Buzzsprout or Spreaker, all under the name Paint a Beautiful Picture. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. You may subscribe, and if you are interested in receiving notifications, please hit the notifications button.